if we're just positive and we believe in ourselves and we understand that we're perfect as we are, then things are going to get better. And that is just wrong. It's wrong. In my head. Hello. The weather is warmer out today, so I'm not covered in layers, which is kind of nice, but I also feel a little bit exposed. I don't know if I'm the only person who goes through that, but I feel like I have more armor on when I'm wearing more clothing. So those of you who may be new, I'm gonna start just like repeatedly saying this at the beginning of my videos, just so people know. I go for walks, typically at night, and I talk about mental health topics. It's kind of what comes to my mind, although you are always welcome to suggest something, so put that down below if you have something you're interested in. But today, I don't know, I had a whole bunch of different thoughts and they didn't really congeal together the way that I would have liked them to, but I wanted to talk about the topic of positive mental health, and I have a couple of different places I'd like to go with this, but generally I want to talk about what does it mean to have positive mental health, how positivity factors into you getting better, maybe some of your motivation. I also want to talk about invalidation and why it's a bad idea to push people to be positive all the time. So I'm kind of going to be all over the place in this video, but hopefully it'll make some sense as I talk. Let's see where we wind up tonight. Alright, I'm in my spot that I like. So, let's see, we were talking about positive mental health. So, one thing that I find people don't have a good grip on is like, what is a healthy, functioning individual? When we have a mental disorder, we're kind of like, okay, like I understand that I do things that aren't so great, but what is a healthy person? What does that look like? So, I want to talk about that. A healthy person can function well in interpersonal relationships. They don't do things that would jeopardize a relationship, like a friendship. They generally are comfortable in social situations. They can attach to people and let go of them okay without too much distress. They can grieve when there's a loss in their life and move on with it. And there's a train coming, so let's see if I can get this out quickly. They can have healthy, intimate relationships. You know, they can have those stronger attachment bonds. They can have healthy sexual relationships. They're comfortable having sex. It feels natural. There's no inappropriate boundaries being crossed when they interact with people. They can function well in their occupations. They generally are comfortable doing work. They understand the importance of work and how it relates to society. Or maybe just personal creative work might be enough for them depending on their situation. So generally it's just that there's not a lot of stress. They can go about their day without needing to reference other people for how to do it. And here comes the train. I think I got everything I needed though. Alright, I apologize, there may be some wind. Maybe I should put the phone a little bit closer to me. I am recording on a phone here. I don't have any fancy technology. I am not in that monetary situation to be able to do that. I do not have money. I have said that a few times here, and that's the reality of my situation. If you would like to support me, I have a Patreon account where you can do so and get some extra stuff. But I don't know. I think I'm going to do a different video. Maybe that's what the weekend video is going to be, about money and mental health. But for me personally, I just want to be out there and be open about it and say, hey, this is where I'm at, you know, so we can discuss how I got here, I guess, in that video. But sorry, that only came about because I was discussing my phone and the situation that I'm in, where, you know, part of the reason I'm out here in the first place is because I don't have so much privacy where I'm living. I don't have the ability to really move. I mean, if I took extreme measures, maybe I could, but that's not where I'm looking to go in my life right now. So my choice right now is to do this, and hopefully we'll see where that goes. Anyway, not related to positive psychology. So positive psychology is its own branch, and it's this like big long thing. It has a lot of different components, a lot of different areas where, I don't know, it's so broad that it would be kind of silly for me to talk about it, I feel like. So I'm not going to talk about positive psychology, but there is this growing attitude that I see among people who want to help people who have psychological problems, mental illness, mental disorders, and oh, here comes the wind. Okay, I'm doing my best here. I have you close to me. I can't handle the wind. And this is one of the frustrations of not having a place to do these videos. So positive psychology is too broad to really talk about, but I've been seeing this trend of people who want to help people with mental illness thinking that we just need positive messages and we need to think positively and we just need to change our thoughts. And part of that comes from the advent of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is effective depending on what your specific problems are. It's not effective for everything, and it is not meant to be used for everything, but people who aren't very familiar with psychology and mental health, sometimes they think that there is more that's in our control than there really is. So we think like, oh, well, the cure for depression is to just change the way that you think about things. And it is true that changing how you think about things will help depression in many cases, but it's not always the only thing that's gonna, so you need more than that in very many cases. It depends on what someone's personal situation is. And again, this channel is about humanizing mental health, and I always want to say this when I'm talking, that everybody's situation is a little bit different. So just because thinking positively may have worked for you doesn't mean that somebody else that's going to work for. But I see this attitude coming from spiritual groups. I see this coming from pseudo-psychology things such as NLP, which is not validated. I just see, sorry, noisy. Give me a moment. Okay, obviously I need to leave this area, but this is this video should have been about my frustrations. But it is, I just don't understand. I don't understand why. I don't understand. This is not a great area for me to be talking tonight, which is weird because nobody was around. But all of a sudden everybody's around. NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, is not a valid psychological treatment, and that is why people can practice it without a license. So I get frustrated because I see people who are in the coaching industries, who are in spiritual circles, who feel that if we're just positive and we believe in ourselves and we understand that we're perfect as we are and like all these positive messages, then things are going to get better. And that is just wrong. It's wrong. It may be helpful, yes, to have positive thoughts and to change our thoughts depending on our individual circumstances, as I mentioned, and that may be an important component of a treatment program, but it is not the entire treatment. And I guess what I really want to get at here is that it can be very invalidating, and maybe I should talk about that next. I'm going to move from here so I can have a deeper conversation about it, but let's talk about invalidation. Alright, so invalidation. Invalidation sucks. Nobody likes to be invalidated, but we maybe have a little bit more tolerance for it, maybe have a little bit more resilience for it, depending on our temperament and depending on our life experiences. Invalidation is when you basically tell somebody not to feel the way that they're feeling, or to deny their feelings, or maybe they tell you their feelings and you just ignore them. So when you try to encourage somebody to just be positive, like somebody tells you they're feeling sad and you're like, no, don't feel that way. Or you tell them like, well, change the way you're thinking, think happy thoughts, and you're always so negative, why are you so negative? stuff like that. What you're doing is you're invalidating how they're feeling, and you're not acknowledging how they're feeling. So how would you like it if you were angry at somebody and somebody said, well, stop being mad, don't be mad, that's negative, you shouldn't act that way. You probably wouldn't like it. And it's the same thing when somebody's feeling sad, or maybe somebody wants to share something happy with you, and you say, well, you shouldn't be happy, you should feel like crap about this, like something like that. The point is, when we try to force people to be happy, and interestingly, PewDiePie has actually done a video about this called Forced Positivity on YouTube. When we deny our emotions, when we deny the sad times, the negative times, the angry times, we're cutting pieces of ourselves away, and we're cutting off our experience of life, and we're making life very difficult to deal with, because our emotions are there to help us deal with life. And when you deny them, when you shove them away, when you suppress them, you are not being a full human being. And when you do that to other people, you're actually harming them. You're making it harder for somebody to heal, because the way towards healing is very often to feel those emotions and to experience them and learn to cope with them. And effective coping is not denying the emotions. Effective coping starts with acknowledging that the emotion exists. So I want to caution the people out there, you know, who think that it's all love, doves, and roses, that that is not how you deal with a mental problem. It's just not. So that said, I do want to, I'm sorry, the wind is getting my eyes again tonight. I do want to say, towards the opposite direction, that it can be helpful, as I mentioned, with CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, or DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, to challenge those negative thoughts. And it can be effective to think the opposite of them. But first, you validate them. First, you acknowledge that they exist. First, you dig into, like, what does it really mean? Why do I feel this way? And then, acknowledging that you're feeling this way, then you turn around and say, okay, but what would be the opposite way of thinking of this? Or how else can I look at this situation so that it doesn't feel like I'm being attacked, so it doesn't feel like I should be ashamed? What else? How else could I see this in the context of my life? So there is something to be said about that positivity. I also wanted to make mention of how one of the difficult parts of treating some mental disorders, like personality disorders, is that there's no motivation, or like a substance use disorder maybe. You may know that you have a problem. You know, some people know that they have a problem with their personality, or they know, sorry, the wind is killing me. They may know, before I move on to this though, this is why I leave in like these moments where I don't look perfect and like I mess up and do things, because that's real, and I just want to be a real representation of who I am. So that out of the way, a substance use disorder, a personality disorder, maybe an anxiety disorder like OCD, all kinds of disorders, we can go into denial about them. We can acknowledge that we have the disorder, but not really want to change it because we think we can cope, or we think we can do other things. So I wanted to talk about motivation a little bit here, because although it's not a secret that pain is a very good motivator, sometimes it's helpful to have a positive motivator as well. And I think one of the greatest positive motivators towards changing and towards healing is to believe that you can change and to believe that you can heal. And for myself, I know that has been true for the various problems that I've had in my life. If I didn't believe that I could heal from them, if I didn't believe there was a way to get out of them, then I never would have gotten out of them, because I would have never had the motivation to even try. So for me, even when times were really, really hard, even when it felt like, no, this isn't working, nothing's gonna work, I'm never going to change, I still had to turn around and say to myself, I will change. There's gonna be a way. There's gotta be a way to deal with this. And that gave me the motivation to keep trying new things, trying new ways, and getting to where I am today. Because for those that don't know me, I have dealt with what I believe was borderline personality disorder in the past. I have dealt with post-traumatic stress disorder. I have dealt with generalized anxiety disorder, of mild phobia. Like, I've had a lot of different experiences, and I know that most of that is self-diagnosed, not all of it, but So, you know, you can come at me however you want to and say, well, your experience is different than mine. You don't understand, and that's fine. You know, that's up to you how you want to define your own personal situation. But my personal belief is that you have to believe that things can change. You have to believe that you're going to beat the odds in some way, and you have to believe that there are effective therapies, there are things that you can do, and you have to go towards that. And the biggest motivator for me has been believing that. The lighting is nice here, but this is not really a private place. So the last thing I guess I wanted to say, if you haven't figured it out already, is that I am a fan of complaining. I think complaining is perfectly fine. And if you are, or if you're somebody who's trying to help somebody else and you find that they keep complaining and it's just like too much for you, then just admit that you can't handle that much complaining and own that for yourself. Don't try to tell them to stop complaining. Don't try to get them to stop complaining. Just say, you know, I can't handle this. This is too much for me, and maybe try to refer them towards a therapist and let them know. That's all. So I said I was going to be a little bit all over the place tonight. I have been all over the place. What do you think about all of this? How do you feel about positivity when it comes to your mental health? Do you feel like people try to push positivity a little bit too much onto you? Do you find positive talk, positive messages to actually help you with your mental health? Let me know your experience. Leave it down below for our community. And of course, subscribe, hit the bell if you want to get notifications for all my videos. Support me on Patreon if that's your thing and get some extras. And thank you as always for joining me here.